Hi, and welcome to New England Authors. So good to have you with us. We're presenting something new every day. Our guest today is Ife Franklin. Ife, so good to have you with our show.
Thank you for having me.
And before we start, why don't you just tell us a little about your life and your artistic work? You're an artist, you're a writer, you have this wonderful book here, which we're going to talk about, but tell us a little about your life.
Okay, my life. I'm originally from Washington, D.C. I started my art career as a photographer. I went to 2 different art colleges before I ended up at School and Museum of Fine Arts, where I went in to finish my degree in photography, and then, of course, you just get inundated with so many wonderful modalities that you gravitate to things and they enhance your practice. So I went in to finish my photography career, and then I got very interested because I like to sing and all this in performance art. I studied with Marilyn Arsom over here. I did video with Jane and Jeff Hudson, and then I met a person who became my mentor and who is still my mentor to this day. His name is Stanley Pinkney, and he taught a class called Art of Africa, where I learned how to create a diade, which is the Yoruba word for fabric. I learned how some people.
What's the word again?
A diade is like the English pronunciation, and a diade is the Yoruba pronunciation. And mostly it's people, when people see a diade, they think tie-dye, okay? So. Yeah. It's just the Yoruba word for it. Is this
a diade that you're wearing?
It is a diade. I did not make this, but it is a wax resist fabric, yes. So I went into this class with Stanley, and it just informed everything that I did. Like, the work is, you're in there, you're learning Yoruba practices, and I practice a religion called Ifa, which is from Yoruba land. So when I met Stanley, things just sort of really leveled out. So I was entrenched in this class and this art form that was really about the culture and religion that I study and practice.
What is it called again?
It's called Ifa. It's the name of the religion, and it's from Yoruba land, which is Western Nigeria.
I see. Have you been to Nigeria?
No, I haven't. I've been to Brazil.
It's a really interesting place.
I've been to Brazil, but not Nigeria, where I met a lot of Nigerians in Brazil, because a lot of the religion of Ifa is also a part of candomblé. Like, when the Africans were taken and enslaved, depending on the port where you dropped off, you took your culture with you, you took your religion with you, you took your songs with you. And that's a perfect segue into the book, because in the book, there's a lot of talk about circles, and not necessarily ring shouts, which we can talk about, but how Willie Mae and different characters have to stand in a circle to do spiritual practices.
So the book is the slave narrative of Willie Mae,
yes,
right? And Willie Mae is whom?
Willie Mae, okay, so the slave narrative of Willie Mae is historical fiction. Willie Mae is my actual great-grandmother.
Just great-grandmother.
My great-grandmother, yes.
And it's told in from the time of 1840 or so.
It is. A lot of it is fictional. Okay, before I get into who my great-grandmother was, I would like to talk about how the book actually came.
Exactly, okay.
The book came to me in a very spiritual way. I wrote the book in the way that I make fabric, or the way that I take pictures. I thought about color, texture, form. I thought about ancestors. Everything that I do is informed by ancestors and by my spiritual practice. So this book was definitely a gift from the ancestors. I woke up one day and I hear them talking to me, and I went to my computer and I started writing. And I actually wrote the book in my Facebook status bar over the course of 3 months.
Really? Wow.
As just entries. Like in the book, it's like number 1, number 2, and that's how I wrote it. And the entries would just come to me. I've read a lot of slave narratives. I build the ancestor slave cabins. There was one in Franklin Park. Everything. My ancestors want me to tell their story.
Yeah.
Not just me. There are tons of people who do this. I'm not the only person who does it.
But you do it in a very different way. This is it's a short book with snippets, and it tells a story.
It's the little book that could. It's the little book that can. I can't believe that in 37 pages, I was able to do what I did, and it's because I was the vessel. So I went and I started writing, and then I thought, oh, I'm being self-indulgent here, maybe I should not even, I don't even know what this is. So I left it. And then people would inbox me or write to me and say, what happened next? You can't leave us hanging. What happened to Willie Mae? And because I don't think of myself as a writer, because I'm more of a visual artist, I guess I sort of came to a block because I couldn't, I don't know, it just wasn't flowing the way that it was.
It is very visual.
It is very visual.
And you write in the language. You use the how should I say? You use
the dialect.
The dialect
of the slave dialect.
Right.
Yes. Well, okay. Slave dialect then evolved into Ebonics, then evolved into Black vernacular as we know now. So a lot of the things that people think of as, slave dialect, when I go home to Washington, D.C. or down south, we go right back into this speech, which is a part of us. It's just a part of who we are. So I got the block, and it's not that I couldn't write, but it just wasn't flowing, And so then a person who is a part of the Ifa religion, she's a Yemaya priestess. Yemaya is one of the saints or orishas in this religion. She wrote me on Facebook and said, if you want this to flow, do you have a picture of your ancestor, Willie Mae? And I do happen to have one.
You do?
Yes,
Wow.
It's a beautiful picture that I took from my mom's photo album. So she said, take the picture, a white candle, and a glass of water, and put it near your computer, and your third eye, everything will open up and it will flow. So I did it, and it was like someone was pouring water, pouring it into, because my fingers just flew like nothing.
Yeah.
So this book is definitely a gift. It's a divine gift. And it's a gift that I want to give and share to others. And I also wanted to write, it's not like I had no concept of what I was doing. I also wanted to write a slave narrative that had a happy ending.
Oh,
because
yes.
you read a slave narrative, it's snippets of the person's life, yes?
Yeah.
And it talks about the worst parts of their existence. And the WPA writers who interviewed people who lived.
Oh, that's right. In the Works Progress Administration of
Yes.
Roosevelt. That's right. There was
Yes.
this.
That's why we have this. That's why the slave narratives are in the Library of Congress, because they went and documented. Now the thing is, they asked them all of these questions about their lives. They never. I have yet to see one of those narratives that asked them, "What makes you happy now? What makes you happy?"
Yeah.
And I guarantee you, they would have said, "My freedom makes me happy." No one asked them that. So I wanted to write a slave narrative that was informative, that hit all the points, that talked about things that were horrible, but also things that were that there was nothing wonderful about the enslavement of my ancestors, but there had to be some spaces and time, even when they were, working their own patch of vegetables, when they would go walk, when Willie Mae would go walk into the wildflowers or go get into the lake. There were times that they had that were precious to them, because you don't know when you would see your parent again. You don't know. The cabin is so important, because this is what I tell people: the slave quarter was our first hood. Okay, you know what I mean? It really is. It really was. It's our first community, and this is where you were born. This is where you could have died. Could be the last place. First place you see your mother, it could be the last place you see your mother.
I see, yeah.
So that's really what I wanted to do with the book.
So if you're just joining us, this is New England Authors. We're talking with Ife Franklin and her beautiful book. I want you to read a little bit of it. But now,
okay.
Willie May, your spiritual ancestor, your ancestor,
My
and
actual ancestor, yes.
who gave you the inspiration for the book, she learned to write, which was illegal. Read and write.
In the book, my actual grandmother never learned to read and write, and she died when I was 2. But I was told that she really liked me a lot, and she kept me near her a lot. Willie May, in the book, she does learn to read and write because she has an ally, young Miss Ann.
Yes, that's right.
Who goes to school up north, actually here in Boston. Willie May is enslaved in Virginia.
Yes.
Young Miss Ann's parents sent her, because they want the finest for their southern daughter. They sent her to Boston to go to school, and she joins the Underground Railroad. Now, her parents don't know this, but then she becomes a part of that, and then she comes back, and she grew up with Willie May. So Willie May was like her companion.
And Willie May is freed through the Underground Railroad, which is very important in New England. There are many places all over New England for the Underground Railroad.
There are.
Yeah.
But did you also know that the last standing slave dwelling is in Medford, Massachusetts?
No, wow.
It is. It's called the Royal House and Slave Quarters. It's in Medford. It's on Isaac Royal was it in Antigua? I think it was Antigua. He had rum, sugar plantations, and I guess he summered here. And you can take tours of the Royal House and Slave Quarters. It's an amazing place.
Yeah, there are a lot of slave traders that are New England. We all know about Brown of Brown University, and Brown University's been dealing with that. I had a guest on the show talking about Perkins, from the
Perkins,
School
Agassiz, who else? Dudley Square is named. A lot of African Americans want to name it Nubian Square. They're working to try to change it from Dudley Square because...
Was Dudley a slave trader? Really? Wow. This is Dudley Square in Roxbury.
Yes.
If you're from outside the area, you probably know the Roxbury area. So, I've wasted a lot of time. I really love the way it's written. And so read one or two sections of it.
Okay.
We're talking about somebody who's going to go on to her freedom,
yes,
right? And
yes.
that's the positive side.
That is the positive side.
And all. So she learns how to read and write.
And she talks about her situation.
Can you talk with the way that it's written?
Sure. I can read it in that. Right. I'm going to read passage. How many passages? Okay.
Read a couple passages.
I'll read passage number 5 first, where she talks about her situation and her work situation. Okay, number 5. Working in the big house ain't no dream. The missus always a watching, putting that evil eye on ya. Always ringing that little bell and yelling, Willie May, do this. Willie May, do that. Eyes want to break she hands. Willie May, Lennox Plantation, 1838. Number 6. Old Master Lennox say, niggas be free over my dead body. So eyes go out to the woods to get my conjure roots so eyes can help he be dead. Willie May, Lennox Plantation, 1839. One of the things that I love about her is that her will to fight, her will to, she knows in her heart, one of the passages says, in my heart, I know I'm not a slave. So she knew who she was, and she wanted something else.
Yeah.
Okay, passage number 8 talks about her father, and then this is where she's starting to actually think about her freedom in a different way.
Right.
Passage number 8. My mammy say, Papa was a big man with beautiful skin, the color of black wood. She say he a proud man with a temper to match. One day, the overseer tries to whip my papa, say he ain't working hard enough. He take that whip and crack it on my papa. Papa take the hoe he use and bring it down on that overseer head. He kill, he dead. they sells my papa. I sad, but I's proud, 'cause I sees freedom in my papa. Willie Mae, Lenox Plantation, 1839.
Yeah, yeah. So that's beautifully written.
Thank you.
Book. Can you go further on to when we encounter her desire to actually escape?
Oh, okay. When young Miss Ann talks to her about reading, passage number 10. Master send he childrens to the school up north. Young Miss Ann and me, we's plays when we was knee-high to the grass. She come back, she called me to she room. She say she heard a black man named Frederick Douglass talk. She say he talk real fine. She say he once was a slave. She say he can read and write. My heart starts to beat fast. Young Miss Ann say in a low voice, she gonna teach me how to read and write. That I can't tell nobody, not my mammy, not nobody. Young Miss Ann say she part of the train that ain't got no track that run under the ground. Eyes look right in young Miss Ann's eyes to see if I can trust she. It feel right. So I was going to learn the power of the book. Willie Mae, Lenox Plantation, 1839. So Willie Mae, she knows books are powerful. She knows education is powerful, and she knows she needs it to be free.
And they use gospel music as a code,
Oh,
right?
yes.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so interesting. Yes.
Moses.
Yes, and Harriet Tubman used Wade in the Water.
Oh yes, we bring on Harry Tubman. I want you to talk about that, but to first of all, talk about the gospel music codes.
Coded language is very, very important to me in my artwork. I use it in drawings that I make. I use it in things that I write and sing, and it's a way that we were able to survive. Every culture that I know has a coded language. Teenagers, I would say hip hop. Hip hop is like so coded. I have to ask other people, what does this mean?
Yeah.
So, a coded language is used in a lot, and coded visuals on quilts were used so that people could tell this was the safe house. Harriet Tubman used Wade in the Water to let enslaved people on their way to freedom know, stay in the water because the dogs are coming. The dogs can't smell your scent if you're in the water, so you need to wade.
Yeah. Yeah. So what impression, by the way, this is our New England authors, and we're talking with Ife Franklin, and it's so good to have you with us. You're such a bright person. I loved you.
Thank you.
I loved reading the book
you.
from the beginning to the end. What impression did you want to leave us about slavery?
The impression that I want to leave through the book, through my project, Ife Franklin's Indigo Project, I want people to understand how human my ancestors were, how human Black people of the diaspora are now in general. I want people to heal. There's a great deal of healing that has to take place before we can have the kumbaya moments that everybody wants to have. We have to deal with this hard history. We have to look at it. I don't necessarily think we have to dissect it, but I definitely think we need to embrace it in a different way, without shame, without hate, without, African Americans and people of the African diaspora need to heal from this Holocaust. And white people and non-Black people, I'm going to say white people, they need to heal too. Slavery was, it was an ill pill to swallow on both sides, even for the people who felt like they had power. It's horrible. Look at the legacy now. Because of the enslavement of Black people, look at race relations now. What has really changed, really?
So, yeah, I mean, I've asked that because we hear now there's kind of more segregation than there was 20 years ago, right? The schools are more segregated, the housing is more segregated, yeah.
It's really painful that in my lifetime, I was born in 1960, so I'm a child of the 70s, so I'm seeing all of this. You know, it was a very free, open time to be growing up, and wonderful politics, just coming off of the 60s into the 70s, into the 80s, and now you see things dialing back, and people want it this way. There are some people who I feel like they won't be satisfied until black people are subjugated again, which will never happen. But I feel like this is what people seem to want. They only want a homogenous white society, it seems like. Here in the United States right now, this is what it feels like. But that's ridiculous because we're all here and we're not going anywhere.
So tell us about Harriet Tubman.
Well, I mean...
She features in your book, you know.
Well, she shows up in the book. She definitely shows up in the book. And she shows up in the book in very interesting ways. Willie Mae comes, you know, is helped along the way by a Wampanoag.
Yeah, that's right. There's
people.
native people
here.
that
she makes her
help
way
right?
here,
Yeah,
and she falls in love with Eliwillisit, who is the son of Queen Conti. But Willie Mae doesn't know that Queen Conti is a part of the Underground Railroad and has been helping people all along. Even though when she asked for help, Queen Conti was like, sure, I'll help you to Boston, but she didn't say, and I know Harriet Tubman, and so she makes her way, she falls in love with Eliwillisit, they find young Miss Anne, her home in Beacon Hill, and you know, they're waiting for Miss Anne to come back, young Miss Anne, and she's saying, okay, I'm here, I'm free, and I need to go back to get my mother and old Aunt Sarah, like I can't just be here without them. And she said, fine, that's great, yes, of course, but first I want you to meet somebody. And so Willie Mae's like, okay. And so in comes, she said, I want you to meet somebody. This is Harriet Tubman, or you may know her as Moses of your people. And of course, Willie Mae had heard of the infamous and famous Moses. And they immediately bond, and Harriet goes back with Willie Mae to Virginia to extract her people and come back.
Yeah.
And it's a wonderful story. Then, you know, she gets married to Eliwillisit, and he builds her own cabin. And
so, yes, it's a beautiful, positive story. So did you go to the plantations in the South and look at
prior to writing the book?
Yeah.
No.
Oh, but afterwards.
But I spent all my summers in the South. I'm from Washington, D.C. My mom and my grandparents are from Virginia and North Carolina. So every summer I would drive down, and you would see the shacks. You would see them. I mean, I didn't know. And you know, some of these things that look like shacks to me were inhabited by people, and I'm from the city, so it was just, but it was lovely. It was always a beautiful vibe. It didn't matter if someone lived in a house made of bricks or if someone was living in a house that to me looked like a shack. But we would see them all the time, and I would ask my grandfather, Grandpa, what's that? What's that? And he would say, oh, that's a shack. But my grandparents didn't like to talk about their lives. They would say, oh, that's a shack, and they wouldn't go into it. After I wrote the book is when I started going to the plantations. I've been to the Magnolia Plantation in South Carolina, the McLeod Plantation, and of course the Royal House and Slave Quarters.
Yeah, I took a tour one year, went to a lot of places, not only Monticello and George Washington's place and these other leaders, but other plantations as well. So what do you think it's going to take to heal our country?
The truth. I mean, the truth will set you free. And it's all around you. I mean, there's documents in the Library of Congress that people just don't want to accept. What do I think it's going to take?
I mean, we had an African-American president and nothing changed.
Well, this is what I was thinking the other day. It is, the enslavement of my ancestors was hundreds of years, and it's going to take a long time to really to deal with that trauma because it was traumatic and it's generational. So if it's going to take us a long time to heal from that, it's going to take white people a long time to understand that they need to let go, that they need to share, that they need, that, you know, their lives are not going to crumble because, you know, someone that looks different moves into your neighborhood. Like, I don't understand their fear, but it's something that they need to deal with. That is their healing. Why do you feel this way? Why? It's not for me or for my community to figure that out for you. But we're here, we're Americans, and hello, a lot of times we're related.
Oh, yes, that's right.
So, family, we need to get it together and heal.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure, I don't have the magic bullet.
No, but your book goes a long way to healing because it gives you perspective and it's a positive story.
It's a very positive story.
And I loved it. I loved talking with you and
Thank you so much.
sharing our humanity, sharing our
love for books.
Our love for books, yeah. So this is New England Authors. We're recording here in Cambridge, Massachusetts. We broadcast all over the region. Thank you for the Curiosity Foundation. And remember, watch locally. Thank you.